Good afternoon, good morning to everybody joining us today. First and foremost, if you can hear the sound of my voice, just type hello, hey, how you doing in the chat so that I can make sure that our audio is coming through loud and clear. Wonderful, thank you very much. All right, let's get going. So my name is Eric Fulton. I am the National Program Manager for Customer Outreach and Communication in the Office of Portfolio Management and Customer Engagement at GSA headquarters in beautiful, sunny, low humidity for a change, Washington, D.C. I am your host for today's special edition of the Client Enrichment Series. This is our first advanced eRETA training course, so I want to welcome you all to that and let you know we are going to be covering many topics today. Just a handful of them include amendments, treasury account symbols, and multiple funding strings, along with several other topics. So today's presenter will be led by Steve Sacco. He is the National Program Manager for the Reimbursable Services Division and our resident eRETA guru. Hopefully you're familiar with Steve from attending one of our beginner background sessions on eRETA. Steve oversees the data management and process improvement of the Reimbursable Services team, which manages eRETA, PBS's external RWA entry and tracking application. Additionally, the team provides data and metrics to senior leadership about the health and the trending of the Reimbursable Services Program. A little bit about the Reimbursable Services Program overall. The team accepts over 15,000 new reimbursable work authorizations, that's RWAs, annually from 330 unique customer agency bureaus located in all 50 states and 7 U.S. territories. PBS delivers nearly $2 billion in RWA projects and services annually. Steve and his team are constantly identifying process improvements and implementing technological solutions to streamline the RWA lifecycle. Prior to working with the Reimbursable Services Division, Steve spent 7 years with GSA's Chief Financial Officer as a Senior Financial Analyst and a Financial Management Intern. Steve earned a BS in Meteorology and a BS in Economics from the Pennsylvania State University, and later a Master's in Business Administration from the University of Maryland. So as you're all aware, I hope, using eRETA and digital signatures will be the mandatory method to submit work requests and RWA information to us here at GSA starting on, does anybody know? I hope so. It's October 1st of this year, 2019. That is the start of fiscal year 2020. We've been hosting these basic eRETA training sessions each month, and we're proud to roll out the first of our advanced sessions, which will be a deeper dive. So we're going to continue to offer both the beginner and an advanced training session over the summer as we gear up for the mandatory conversion date. So while all of your favorite shows go into repeats, we here at GSA are offering you all new content for the summer months. So you can keep up with our schedule online at www.gsa.gov/CES, or you can check your inbox for messages from the Client Enrichment Series team. Before we get to our presentation and our first poll question today, I do want to review just a couple of housekeeping instructions. First and foremost, we have automatically muted your audio, and that helps us better control the sound quality of the presentation today. If you experience any issues with your audio, or if you have called in or anything, you might want to try calling back in on the number. There's a little phone icon. Sometimes people get knocked off and the little bugs in the system, not quite sure, but hit that little phone icon up top and it should call you right back. If you have a question during the course of today's presentation, hopefully you're familiar with the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen. I see people typing in it right now. Just go ahead and type that question in there, and we will have one of our subject matter experts, or perhaps Steve himself, answer that question in real time. If at any moment you want to enlarge the size of the viewing area, just go ahead and hit that four-headed arrow at the top right of your viewing area. That'll maximize the screen, and you can get a better look at what Steve is presenting. And when you have a question, just hit that arrow again, and the chat box will pop right back up, and you can put it in there. As with all of our Client Enrichment Series presentations, we are going to be capturing all of the questions that we get to and the ones we don't have time to get to, and answering them in a formal FAQ document, which we will make available to you after the presentation. I'm excited about today's presentation. This is our first go-round of it, so please feel free to ask questions. Let's make this a little more of an engaging session. I hope that everyone here has a little bit of background with the eRETA system, which I think is a good segue into our first poll question of the day, which we're going to pop into the screen right now so that we can get a better understanding of where everybody is. And so, what level of access do you currently have to eRETA? And hopefully everybody knows that there's two different kinds. There's data entry, there's read-only, and I don't have an eRETA user ID yet. All right, so I see that a majority of the respondents, we've got 58%, 24 so far, are data entry users, far outnumbering the read-only users, just a handful of those. I do see we have 13 or so folks said you don't have an eRETA user ID yet. I want to note that for everybody and for Steve, while this is an advanced course, I would encourage you on, I believe it's June 27th, to come back and take our beginner course with your eReader access, and so that way you can get the full range of educational offerings that we have here. Hopefully this won't be too far over your head, and you will have some good questions to ask us about eRETA, even though you don't yet have any access. So we are going to swipe that poll question out, and I am going to turn over today's presentation to Steve. So Steve, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric, for the great introduction, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. So thank you for joining us today. So we did send out the slides yesterday to you also. Hopefully you have a copy of that. If not, we'll make sure to get them to you sometime today. But like I normally do, even for the basic courses that we offer each month, I usually tend to jump out of the PowerPoint slides and go into our test environment to show you some functionality of the eRETA application in a live, or I should say in a test environment. So we've done 10 sessions so far. So each month we've done one of our basic training classes, and from the tons and tons of questions that we get in each one of those sessions, the topics you see in front of you right now are some of the core questions we seem to get over and over and over again. So we thought, well, let's have an advanced course and really dive even deeper into these topics and answer all your questions. So we have about 5 or 6 main topics we want to discuss with you guys today, because you have asked us these questions in the past. But we have an open Q&A at the very end too, so if there's anything else specifically that you'd like us to show or demo or to explain out, we're happy to do that. We should have ample time to cover some open Q&A, which might lead us to adding that as a topic in a future advanced course. So with that said, let's move on here to slide number 5, and we'll start up somewhat simple and slow here, which is the basic website. Most of you that said you already have eRETA access, I'm sure you're very, very familiar with this website. For those of you that said you did not yet have access, this is your main starting point, www.gsa.gov/eRETA. And for that purpose, I'm going to already jump out of the PowerPoint slide here and go into, or go to that website, I should say. Just quickly give you a little tour of that in case you are not yet familiar with it. So really, there's 2 sections of the website. The default customer portal is what comes up when you type in that website. If you see here in the left-hand pane, there's then 2 sub-pages, eRETA training materials, and then how do I access eRETA. So for the handful of you that said you do not currently have access to eRETA, this is where you're going to want to navigate to after we finish today's session. And we quickly spell out the 3-step application process. I'm not going to go over it verbatim here, but obviously navigate here, and you can see the 3-step application process is outlined. And for the most part, we did some analysis since we've revised our process for getting access back in October, and then revamped it just a slight bit more just last month. But 90% of our applicants have been getting access within 24 hours or less. So we're really turning the user applications around very, very fast and getting you access to eRETA oftentimes the same day that you start the application process. The other half, or the other portion of our eRETA website, is this eRETA training materials. Whoops, GSA asking me to do a survey, not right now. And on here we have a whole host of various training materials. You'll see we have 2 user guides. These 2 user guides both doing amendments. Excuse me, I'm at the promo guides. The user guides are down here. So submitting amendments to GSA, that is one we've relatively recently finished up and posted online. or submitting brand new work requests to GSA. If you have more questions about doing one of those or both of those things, these user guides are very helpful documents that go step-by-step through the whole process with some screenshots to help walk you through that. So whether it's you or maybe your neighbor sitting next to you who wasn't able to attend today's session, we can certainly direct them over to this website to access these user guides. Likewise, this one's always good, requesting and applying digital signatures, which we're going to talk about more in depth today as well. But for those in your agency or maybe your supervisor who does sign the RWAs, this is always a good one, short user guide as well to educate them on how the digital signature process works. Other than that, we have other training resources, as you can see here. I won't spend time, but you can obviously peruse this website at your convenience. And then we also have several training videos, which are effectively a recording of a session like today's that you or anyone else could watch if you're not able to attend one of our live training sessions. So that in a nutshell is the website. So please take advantage of all the resources that we put online there. So let me get back into our slide deck here and we'll move along. Where is the view? There it is. All right. So moving along here to slide 6. So this is a helpful little workflow, a high-level workflow chart of the new work request process. So your actions as a customer are in these orange or red bubbles. GSA actions are in the blue bubbles, and then the system does a little bit of work, or it's a joint action shown in the green bubbles. So to quickly walk you through this, if you're not familiar, the whole process now starts with a work request, which you as the customer enter and send it to GSA. The system will automatically route it to the appropriate regional contacts for further assignment. So that's really those first 2 bubbles, actually. Then we move on to the far right bubble at the upper right bubble there, where GSA then we will assign you a project manager to help develop requirements, to help do a cost estimate and put a schedule together and all those things that typically happen when we start doing an RWA or leading up to an RWA. And that's outlined there in that green bubble there. And then moving down to the middle of the screen here, this next orange bubble is at this point in time, after you have a requirements document, after GSA has created and given you a cost estimate, you can start entering the rest of your work request, which is essentially becoming an RWA now, as you fill out the same information that you previously filled out on page 1 of the RWA 2957 form. So now you're just doing everything in eRETA directly versus a PDF or paper copy, but we're capturing the same information. Once you send that work request, or really now it's kind of a pending RWA to GSA, we will then go in as the GSA folks and we will enter our GSA specific information, which is the equivalent of page 2 of the former RWA 2957 form. And then we have one more step before we get an accepted RWA, and that's to get digital signatures. And we'll talk about, as I mentioned, digital signatures a little bit more today. But what you want to remember here, one of the frequently asked questions that we do get is that up in this bubble here, when you have entered your information and you've entered the name or email address of the individual who will be signing the RWA for you guys on behalf of your agency, they will not get a notification to apply their digital signature right here. That doesn't happen until we get down to this part where we route the RWA for digital signatures. So in the past, you would, when we were still using the paper form, for example, you would fill out all page 1 and somebody would sign page 1 on behalf of your agency and then you send it to GSA. Now you're filling out everything for page 1 and then GSA is filling out everything for page 2, and then the very, very, very last thing we do now is we route the RWA for both digital signatures, both yours as the customer and then ours as GSA. So just something to be cognizant of, that your approving official will not receive a notification to apply his or her digital signature the moment you send the RWA to GSA. No, that now happens at the very, very tail end of the process when GSA also enters our information on the RWA form as well, and then we route it for both of those signatures. And here we now have gotten to the finish line where we have an accepted RWA, and you will receive the acceptance letter and a copy of the signed RWA as you always had before. So this is a helpful slide just to even print out or keep on your desk or keep handy for reference purposes, just to remind yourself of this new workflow. All right, so let's dive into the nitty-gritty stuff that you all signed up for today. So RWA amendments. As a reminder, for amendments, you can amend any RWA that you've given to GSA, even if it was an RWA you gave to us back in 2005 and it's still going and it's still active today, you can amend that RWA. So it does not, amendments are not isolated just to RWAs that you create in the system. No, no, no. It's any RWA we've ever accepted, because even though you as a customer are only now just starting to use eRETA to input your stuff, we as GSA have been putting your RWA information into RETA and eRETA for decades now. So all those older RWAs are already in the system because we did the data entry on your behalf way back when we initially accepted it. So you can amend any RWA, whether it was one you input yourself a few days ago or one you gave to us via paper several years ago. It will be in the system for you to review and, if applicable, to amend as well. So there are 4 amendment types, which you can see on the screen here. And those amendment types, I'll go into a little bit more detail here. So the first one, and you don't have to memorize these letters, this is really more for the system to identify the unique transaction, but what we call an E-input code is a customer administrative change. So this is something that you might want to amend, very simple. You're not changing the scope of work, you're not changing the dollar amount, you're not changing the funding source, you're just saying, oh, I want to add my customer order number, or I want to add some other, or update the point of contact on this RWA, or what have you. But that customer administrative change allows you to make those simple, basic changes and then immediately submit them to our financial management system in GSA, which we call Pegasus. So the E-input code is the one amendment type where you can go in as a customer, make the change, and immediately submit it as an update to the RWA. It does not need to be reviewed by GSA first. So that's the only one that can be submitted directly into the system without GSA's second review. The following input codes, the remaining input codes, which we'll talk about here, the H input code, which is a billing change, the N input code, which is to notify GSA that you now need to cancel this RWA, or we need to mark it substantially complete sooner. And then lastly, the X input code, which is the amount and or scope change. All 3 of those types require you to, or when you submit those amendments, you will, they will then be routed to GSA to first accept it or reject it, but usually we'll accept it. And then we will submit it to into Pegasus for you. So let me jump out of the system again here, or out of the slide deck, and go into our test environment, which I have open right here. And let's just pull up an RWA randomly, and we'll, oops, log me out. Let me log back in here. Sorry about that, folks. And just so you are, this is our test environment, so the login looks a little bit odd, and that's because it's just our test environment, it's not the live environment. So the live environment hasn't changed how you log in. The test environment obviously has a different method for logging in. So right now I'm logged in as if I was a customer, not somebody from GSA. So let me just put in some search criteria here to find a sample RWA. All right, so there's my search results. I'm just going to randomly pick an RWA here. And so to initiate an amendment, you'll do what I did. You can either search, if you know the RWA number off the top of your head, that's going to be the easiest way to find it. Just type in the 7-digit number. If you're not sure, like I wasn't, I just put in several search criteria. The list came back, and then I found my RWA in that list, and now I've opened it up. So to access amendments, we're going to click the Edit button, and you'll see a screen shortly that looks identical to the one we had in that slide number 6 a little while ago with my input codes. So you see the 4 amendment types that show in this pull-down menu. And you might be saying, well, wait a minute, Steve said that if I did that customer administrative change, that E-input code, I could just submit it right to Pegasus without GSA reviewing it. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to change the dollar amount, but GSA won't have to review it. Well, we thought about that. So as you'll see, only certain fields are editable with an e-input code, and the same is true for those other amendment types. And really, as you build on, as you go all the way up to the X input code, you can pretty much change everything. So right now, I'm starting an e-input code. Let me navigate to the billing information tab, for example. And what you'll see here is that a lot of the data elements are not editable. So I can't change my BOAC if that was wrong. I can't change the billing method or the billing type. I can't change the dollar amount. Everything is disabled. So only a handful of fields here have white backgrounds, as you see, which indicates that they are editable. So the e-input code, of course, while it allows you to instantly submit something to Pegasus, you're only allowed to touch or change a select few number of fields. And this was intentional, of course. Now, I'll just show you here as well, the same thing with the accounting details tab. I cannot change the fund year, the fund type, the treasury symbol, the dollar amount. I can update the accounting agency accounting data fields, but I can't change any of the financial information or the funding source. And then last but not least, you'll see here when I get to the final tab, I'll have a button that says submit to Pegasus. Scroll down. So instead of saying send to GSA as it would on any of those other amendments, it says submit to Pegasus, which suggests that you are able to submit your changes immediately into our financial management database without needing GSA to review it first. So that's an e-input code, and then just to show you the other side of the coin here, we'll do, well, I'll show you each one of the amendment types because this is what you signed up for, so we're gonna do a quick review. So the next one, the billing change, H input code. You'll see here, it does the same thing. It's gonna take me or open up the 3 tabs again, but now you'll see a lot of these other fields that were not enabled on that E input code are now editable with this H input code. So now I can change the BOAC or the ALC or the billing frequency, monthly or quarterly. The same fields that were editable before are still editable with the H input code. Essentially every input code or amendment type builds on what you can or cannot change, but you can see here I cannot touch the dollar amount. That's still not editable with the H input code either. And so let me just change one thing here just to give you a preview. So make that very important change. Save this tab here. And I do apologize that our test environment is obviously a little bit slower or more sluggish, so this is just taking longer than usual to save my change. But there we go. If I go to the accounting details tab, you'll see the same thing. I can change some of the information here. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, how come I could change the line amount here? And that's a good question to be asking. This allows you to change the amount here in the event that, hey, this billing change I want to make, I'm actually going to split the funding between this line and a second line. But it won't let you add funding to it. So if I try to make this larger, let's say I just try to make this to be 100,000, for example, I will get an error that says that my number doesn't match. I didn't get that error. I'll have to talk to the developers about that. But, oops, that's why. There we go. There we go. There's the error I was looking for. Okay. So because I couldn't change the dollar amount on this tab number 2 earlier, these numbers have to match the number pulling in from tab 2 and the number here. And since these don't match right now, that's why I'm getting that error. So let me undo that. I'll get to the customer approval tab again. And now what you'll see here, instead of the Submit to Pegasus button, I actually have a new tab called the Amendment Summary. And you'll have that Amendment Summary tab pop up every time you do any one of those bottom 3 input codes. And what the Amendment Summary is, it's just a quick summary to show you and also to show GSA when we get the notification that you've submitted an amendment, a comparison, a before and after comparison of what was on the RWB before and what you change on this potential amendment. Now if we scroll down, you can see we've highlighted, or with this little blue diamond and the text is blue here, that we changed the customer order number on my amendment, but everything else looks the same, so nothing else is colored or noted. And as I get to the bottom, now you see I have this send a GSA button. So now clicking the send a GSA button sends a notification to the GSA project manager as well as the GSA data entry user to say, hey, so-and-so has submitted an amendment request for RWA 12345. Please take a look and approve or reject the amendment as necessary. All right. So let me just show you guys two more quick things, and then we'll take a pause to see if there are any questions I can answer. Otherwise, we'll keep going. I know my colleagues are in the chat window typing furiously away at your questions and giving you solid answers. So, but if there are any outstanding questions that they'd like me to answer, I'm happy to do that. So let's see here.
Nothing outstanding at the moment. I do want to jump in. I think we had a couple people asking if they would receive the slide deck. We did send it in advance, and I see that Andrea is also sending during the seminar, and we will also send after the fact as well, once again, to everyone as a follow-up. So I just want to make sure, yes, you will have a copy of this slide deck that you can refer to. So what we will do now, I think, Steve, is just continue with your presentation, and we'll pull out any questions moving forward.
All right, sounds good. So just wrapping up amendments, this N input code to indicate to GSA that you want to cancel this RWA. So we've already gone through the process. We've accepted the RWA, but then something changed, or you had an emergency or had to reprioritize funding. So that's why you need to cancel this or mark it complete early. So those would be a list of examples of why you might ever use this N input code. And what you can see here is this screen looks entirely different than the other two amendment types that we did. So in this one, you're just giving a quick overview of the financials on this RWA to date. This one's a relatively new one, so we haven't had any billing or collections yet. No obligations, nothing. You see all the dollar amounts are zero. So the only thing you need to do when an N input code is the appropriate amendment type that you're trying to send to us is you just simply type in a justification for why you're needing to cancel this RWA or mark it, or asking us to mark it completed earlier than we originally expected. So that one's a relatively easy amendment type, but for now I'm going to cancel this as well to show you, last but not least, the X input code, where you can do everything from amount or scope changes as necessary. So the X input code will look the same as those first two, where it'll take you into the data entry wizard, and you'll see pretty much every field will be editable to you, because the X input code essentially is a catch-all for making amendments of all types. So here you see the description, or the scope block is now editable and open for changes or updates to the description. Moving on to the billing information tab, you'll also see now that the dollar amount, this agency certified amount field, is open for editing to as necessary, as are all the other fields that you were trying to change earlier. The billing information tab, again, everything will be editable, and you can change it. And Rita knows if you change the dollar amount, if you were to change this funding type, so let's just change this to, say, we'll call it annual funds now, just as a simple example of changing it. But if you change the dollar amount, if you change the scope, if you change the funding source, oops, I got to update my treasury symbol too here. Let's do that real quick. And I'm going to talk about treasury symbols today too, so don't think that I'm skipping past that, but I want to finish my thought here on amendments, and then we'll move in to talking about treasury symbols next. So what Rita knows here is that, so yeah, perfect, this is what I wanted to show, is that in this case, because I changed the funding source, I changed that multi-year funds to a annual funds, as you recall. That was one of the key fields, in addition to the dollar amount, in addition to the scope of work, that if you change those fields on this X input code, Rita automatically flags this RWA as needing new signatures. We've materially changed something on the original agreement that would require both the customer and GSA to sign it a second time. So in this case, you see all the past signature information. has been cleared out because now eRETA is saying, hey, you changed that key field, you changed the appropriation type, so we need to get a new signature on this RWA. So forces me to select that electronic signature button again, and either keep Nicole's name, who signed the first one, or change it if Nicole is not the appropriate person to sign it. And then when you get to the amendment summary tab here, we'll scroll down. You'll see the fact that Nicole has not yet signed it yet, so that's one of the things that's changing. And likewise, that we've added a new accounting line, or we've changed the accounting line, and we've changed the treasury symbol, and we changed the expiration date. So all those fields are highlighted blue to indicate that. And likewise, now I can hit the Send to GSA button. But because we have to get this signed again, remember, if I click Send to GSA right now, Nicole, in this case, in this example, will not get an email to apply her signature yet. GSA has to first review the amendment and accept it, and then we will route the amendment back out for digital signatures. So again, when you're sending an amendment here that requires a new signature, just like a new RWA, when you send it to GSA, the person who you've identified to apply his or her digital signature will not get that notification until after GSA has done our review, and then we route the RWA out for digital signatures, both from you and from ourselves as well. All right, so that is an overview on amendments. So hopefully that all made more sense to you. If you haven't been doing amendments yourself yet, now you can. Now you're going to be an expert. So moving along in the slide deck, this is just another slide. We clearly talked in much more detail about amendments than what's in the slide deck, so we can go past that one. So treasury account symbols in the My Favorites. So I'm going to go back into our test environment here and show you treasury symbols, because if there's one thing that I get a lot of questions on in our eRETA at gsa.gov mailbox, it's about treasury symbols. So going to the Accounting Details tab, where the treasury symbol field is located, I want to show you a few features that you may or may not be aware of. First and foremost, if you choose to type it in your treasury symbol manually, instead of using these lookup windows, which I'll talk about here shortly, if you choose to type it in manually, it has to be the precise format that GSA's system, so eRETA, Pegasus, our financial management system, and Treasury's IPAC system recognize. And there's some misconception about what that format is exactly. And the format here is, as shown on the screen, is the exact format. The main thing that one would note here is that for an annual or multi-year Treasury symbol, there's this one empty space after the ending year of 2019, but before the fund code starts. So there's that empty space here. On the flip side, if this was a no year appropriation, the treasury symbol will look like this. So where that empty space was, the X for no year is in that empty space. And instead of showing the beginning year 2019 and the ending year 2019, you now have 8 empty spaces here between the agency code 070 in this case before the X. So that is the exact or precise format of the component treasury symbol. So some of you might try typing it in, and you might put it as, for example, I've seen people do something like this. So they like to space out each component, which is a natural way to think about it. But because there's all these extra spaces, this is not the format that the system recognizes, and you'll get an error message suggesting that this treasury symbol does not exist. And so this message might be somewhat misleading in that it's that the format you've entered here is not the format the system is expecting. So how do you resolve that? The easiest way, something we always recommend, is using the lookup icon. So whenever you see a magnifying glass icon to the right of a field, that launches a search pop-up window for the field in question. So I can open this up, and you see I have a search field. You can see the description here. This is essentially what I just explained in more details. And then, but one of the things that's the easiest to use, or best way to use this, is I always, instead of trying to find out the treasury symbol exactly, you can type in partial information. So if I just typed in 070 for DHS, for example, and I just searched on that, you can see I'll get a whole host of, let me make the screen a little bit bigger. You'll see that I have 852 treasury symbols are currently active for DHS. Okay, well that's a little bit too big. That's not helping me narrow down what my which treasury symbol is mine, so you can either enter additional information here. You could type in your account code, so if your account code was 0601, which I think was the other one, let's see what happens. Nope. 0611, let's try that one instead. Now you can see here's my list, so I can see that treasury symbol exists, or that fund code 0611 is on multiple treasury symbols. If I find the one I want, I'm like, oh, there it is. I can just select it. It'll populate my parent screen. And what you can see here too is that we have the treasury symbol listed in 2 different formats. So this is the new component format that we're using today, that Treasury is using today. But some of you are still more familiar with the old format, which we show, we call it the 2-digit year. I don't think that's the official name of that format, but that's what we kind of call it in eRETA and eRETA. But you can see it. So these are the same Treasury symbols in this row, just in 2 different formats. So that's how the Treasury symbol format is. So if some of you ever get that error, it's probably not that the Treasury symbol isn't loaded into eRETA. It's probably that if you try to type it out manually instead of using this lookup window, you might have typed it in the wrong format. But to take the guesswork out of that, we've also added another new field to the Treasury symbol, which is called My Favorites. And I can show you that from this same search screen. So if you see here in the far left column called Favorites, I have all these stars that are all currently unshaded. So if one of these Treasury symbols is one I use all the time, or maybe 50% of the time, it's as simple as just clicking on that little star, and it'll shade it yellow now, as you see. And that'll automatically add that Treasury symbol. Let's just add another one for the heck of it. It'll automatically add these 2 Treasury symbols to my favorites. So how do you access your favorites? So let me close this pop-up window here. And the My Favorites has its own icon, this little star icon. And if I click on that, I did not save that last page. That was my fault. Let's do this again, show you how this really works. So let's rerun that list, 070, 0611. All right. So let me save my favorites here. Just randomly saving some. And now let me close this window. And now my favorites, there we go. So now my favorites are automatically listed there. So instead of having to run the search, I can just click on the star icon and say, well, this is the Treasury symbol that's appropriate for this particular RWA. I just click on it, and you see eRETA automatically populates that Treasury symbol in the Treasury symbol field in the exact format that the system is expecting. So it takes the guesswork out of the Treasury symbol. And of course, you can add to your favorites list at any time by clicking the View All/Add Favorites. If a Treasury symbol, let's say it's just for 2019, and now when the calendar rolls into 2020 next year, we don't want to use that 2019 Treasury symbol anymore. It's as simple as clicking the X here to remove it so it's no longer in my list. So that is how the Treasury symbol and the My Favorites feature works. And just, although not on the detailed list of topics I want to cover today, I do want to show you that the My Favorites list is not only for the Treasury symbol, but we've also added the My Favorites list for your BOAC, which I'm in the wrong amendment type, but there is a star here next to the BOAC account code /BOAC field 2 on new RWAs and when you're doing an H input code billing change amendment as well. So you'll see the star here. So you can also store your My Favorite BOACs as well as your My Favorite Treasury symbols. Okay. So that is a quick little overview on the Treasury symbol. And this is the slide number 10 here is just going over more the details I just covered regarding how to use the My Favorites feature. So let's move along to the next topic of today's advanced course, which is how to enter multiple funding strings and how to use the line to bill feature. So let me go back into the test environment here and keep messing around with this example. So first, let me just change this to around $100,000 just to make it easier for demonstration purposes. And let's change this one. Let's make it 51,000. And I'm going to add a second line here. Okay, so now that's just a warning message because I'm doing something that raises red flags from our auditors, so that was just a warning message that says, are you sure you want to go forward with this because this has mixed funding from 2 different years. And so that's essentially what that warning message was that I quickly glossed over there. But now I have two lines, and I could add a third, a fourth. I could add 20 new lines. Just keep clicking the add button here, and it'll allow you to add more and more lines, as long as the sum of your lines here is the sum of the lines. In this case, these 2 lines, the sum of it is equal to our 100,000, which it is. So the caveat here is, while eRETA and eRETA allow you to add multiple funding lines, unfortunately our billing system, Pegasus, that system I talked about earlier today, can only bill 1 line at a time. It can only reference 1 billing line when we generate your bill each month. So what do? Well, we added this line to bill column here, and as you can see, it selected the line I just added by default. But I can quickly change it to bill this line if I want to, and then save the screen. And then this will be the billing details that we will send to Pegasus, and therefore when Pegasus generates your bill each month, Pegasus will reference everything on this line. Now, let's say the $51,000 is coming to an end, or we've billed you for $51,000 worth of work. You would then have to come in, or you could request GSA to do it, but one of the 2 of us could come into eRETA, find this RWA, come to the accounting details tab, and then you simply click the line to bill button for the second line, save it, and send that amendment down to Pegasus. And now all subsequent bills from that point forward will now reference all the billing details for this line number 2 instead. So that's one of the caveats about our billing system, or one of the limitations, I guess I should say, is that while eRETA and eRETA allow you to add multiple funding sources for your RWA, the billing system can only handle 1 line per bill. So we've added this line to bill column to help you switch over which line is being built at any time, and that can change at any time, whether it's the day after you submitted the RWA to weeks or months or years later, whenever it's appropriate to switch the line that's being billed. Come in here, process. You only need to do an e-input code. The administrative amendment is all you would need to change this line to bill, and then submit that down to Pegasus, so then Pegasus knows to bill the new line from that point forward. So that is a little bit about the line to bill option. And if you forgot everything I just said, this little agency accounting detail lines help. If you click on that, it'll pull up a pop-up which kind of recaps how the line to bill feature works. And that's explained here in this 4th bullet, the system limitations. So that'll tell you about how the line to bill column / radio button works, and influences Pegasus to bill the appropriate line at any given time. All right, so let me take another break here and check in with Eric to see if there's any questions that I could answer aloud.
We got a good back and forth in the chat, so we don't have any significant questions. I do want to take a moment to remind folks, we're popping in and out of the test environment here. So when we are in the test environment, if you want to get a better view, just hit that 4-headed arrow at the top right of your presentation, scene area, and that will enlarge the screen for you. But I think we're going back into the slide deck, at least for a little bit here. But you'll have that option next time and can use that for the slides as well. So, Steve, we'll move on forward.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. So the next topic we wanted to talk about today, or at least the last primary topic that we wanted to cover today, was regarding digital signatures. Now, today, as you can see on slide number 12, we have it highlighted there in orange. You have the option to select the electronic signature radio button, or you can still do a manual signature where you can then print out the RWA form, and everything you've entered into eRETA so far will print out in the 2957 format to then capture your signature, or the signature of whoever's going to sign it, and then you would come back, scan that in, obviously, and upload it here into eRETA so that we have eyes on it too. However, we do prefer electronic signature because it's a lot quicker, a lot less paperwork, a lot less hassle, and frankly, come October 1st, that's your only option anyway. So, so we do encourage you to use electronic / digital signature option today as it is. So, as I mentioned earlier, when we looked at that little flow chart way back on slide number 6 that showed, you enter stuff, we enter stuff, we do some work, you do some work, you send the RWA to GSA, but the signature request doesn't go out. In this case, looks like we have Nicole's name again on the screenshot in slide 12. Nicole will not receive the email to have her apply her digital signature until after GSA also jumped into the RWA, filled out our 3 data entry tabs, and then routed the RWA for signature as the final piece of the puzzle. So again, just want to emphasize that digital signatures don't go out the moment you send it to GSA. They go out after GSA has reviewed and also entered our own information. So how does this work? Pretty easily. In this case, to keep using Nicole's name as the name listed here on this sample screenshot, Nicole does not need eRETA access. She doesn't need any user ID or password to apply her digital signature. No special software, nothing like that. In fact, a good chunk of the signers on GSA side, because we're electronically signing every RWA that we accept as well, I'd say probably more than half of our GSA approving officials do not have access to our system. They just sign RWAs, and you don't need access to sign them. Some of them want access because they're doing more than just signing RWAs, of course, but it's not a requirement to apply a digital signature. So how does it work? Well, essentially once GSA hits that route for signatures button on our end, an email notification at that point in time would go to Nicole in this case. And I'm going over to my other screen. I'm going to pull it over here. Just bear with me so I can show you a example of a digital signature email. So let me find it in my inbox here, and then I'll pull it over to the screen. So, all right. All right, here. So let me pull it in here. All right, so hopefully now you can see my email inbox here, and this is what a digital signature email would look like to the person who was going to sign it. They would not see this test. This is just text we have from our test environment, so people, when we do generate digital signature requests in our test environment for testing purposes, we're not accidentally making someone think they're signing a real RWA. So, but the real one would be absent this test in front of it, but it would look like this, starting with the RWA number, and then the city and state that the RWA was to be done in, and then a sequential number after it, 001 in this case as the very, very first digital signature request. Your signer would get this email, they would see it. We have some summary level information in here, but all they have to do, and they can do this from anywhere they receive their government email anyway, so it could be a laptop, it could be a desktop, it could be an iPad or a smartphone, wherever they receive their email, they could effectively apply their digital signature. And all they'd have to do is click on this teal button here in the email, and that'll launch our eSign Live software. So this is outside of eRETA right now, and it's in our eSign Live digital signature solution that we use in GSA. And what they see now is a copy of that 2957 form with all of the data populated in the appropriate blocks. So I'd scroll down. In this case, we just had GSA sign it, but if the customer were to sign it, you would have a little, well, I'll show you. So you see the little sticky note here down in block 28A to capture the GSA signature, but when you as the customer receive it first, you would have that little yellow sticky here in block 18A, and that's where you would apply your signature. And to apply the signature, it's literally as easy as clicking that little yellow sticky. So I'll sign this one here just to show you what it looks like. And I just have to now click OK to confirm I want to sign this document. Now eSign Live is doing its work. It's captured my signature, and now it sent the RWA back to GSA. So in the case where you as the customer sign it first, what would happen is GSA clicks the button in eRETA that says Route for Signatures. This email here is sent to, let's use Nicole's name again as our example. Nicole would have gotten this email. She would have clicked the Here button, which would have opened up eSign Live in a new browser or new tab. She would have come down. She would have had a yellow sticky here on block 18A, and she would have done the same steps I just did. Click that and said OK to sign it. The system, eSign Live in this case, is capturing Nicole's signature and the date she signed it, and now instantly an email is then sent to the GSA person for him or her to apply their signature, and then the GSA person will follow those same steps, look at the email, open up click that little teal button, click the yellow sticky down in block 28A, and then once they did all that, now we have a signed RWA, and shortly after all that happens, the signed RWA comes back into eRETA and eRETA, and the RWA is accepted, and shortly after that we then will send to you and several other folks listed on the RWA a copy of the signed RWA as well as a copy of the acceptance letter. So that part, the acceptance letter and the signed RWA, has been a process we've been doing for years and years and years. Now it's just slightly more automated because of digital signatures and eRETA. So that is how easy it is to apply a digital signature. It's literally 2 steps. I got an email like this one. I clicked the teal button, which opened up eSign Live in a new tab, and then I scrolled down on that 2957 to find the little yellow sticky note where it wants me to apply my signature, and I clicked that. So essentially 3 clicks, 1 to open the email, 1 to launch eSign Live, and a 3rd one to click the yellow sticky to sign my name. So that's really all there is to digital signatures, pretty simple and easy. And like we said, you do not, or the people that are signing RWAs within your agency do not need to also have an eRETA user ID to do all this. I just need to get the email to my government email address, and the rest I can take care of from there. All right, so let me close this, get this out of the way here. Back to the slide deck. All right, so that is digital signatures. And here's slide number 13. It's just another screenshot showing you both the email there in the background, the upper left screenshot, and then an example of the RWA and that little yellow sticky note indicating where the system wants me to apply my signature. And that's it, at least for what we wanted to discuss, but we do have some time left, so if there are questions that are out there or something else we might want to demonstrate, this is your opportunity to ask that question, and we can spend some time doing it. So I don't know, Eric, if we have any questions or if we're ready to just wrap this up a little bit early, which would be fine too. I'm sure people would like some free time back in their day.
Well, who wouldn't? You know, we're waiting to see some questions come in. You know, we did have a poll question that we wanted to ask, but Steve, you answered it 3 times in the course of your presentation on digital signatures. So I will just verbally give the poll, and the answer was about digital signatures, and just hammering home, reiterating that point that you do not need an eRETA user ID to perform the digital signature function. This is something that we asked in our beginner sessions and something we ask now. So we were going to swing it out there, and then you very clearly stated the answer, and we thought that would be cheating for all of our audience members. We wanted to have a fair fight. So we do see, monitoring the chat to see if there's anything we want to pull up. Steve does have up on the screen right now where you can go to get more resources. If you have some questions, we archive all of our FAQs and information like that up on the gsa.gov/eRETA website. We also have been sending out monthly quick tips. If you have an eRETA user ID, and a majority of the people on this call do, you should be receiving eRETA monthly quick tips, which kind of like this session gives you a little bit more of an advanced look into how to make the most out of using eRETA beyond the basics, how to hopefully help you with some of your day-to-day tasks. If you have an eRETA user ID and you're not receiving those each month, just send an email to eRETA, E-R-E-T-A, @gsa.gov, And if you don't have an eRETA user ID, you should get an eRETA user ID. Okay, so we do have a question, and we just want to know, can we go back to the 4 amendment screen?
Sure. Let me do that now.
Right.
Well, not to make everyone dizzy while I navigate back to it. Well, let me blow it up here so it's bigger. All right. And do we have a specific question, or do we just want to look at it?
Yeah, I think can you just sort of discuss the 4 types again? I think that this is an important thing. So
Sure.
just the 4 options. Maybe we just spend a couple of minutes reiterating this part of it.
Sure. Yeah. And a lot of what I've heard from some of you too is that it's just trial and error. Obviously, when you select one of those amendment types and then you realize, wait, the field I want to change is disabled or grayed out, so that's clearly not the amendment type I need to select to make the change to that particular field. So to recap here, the e-input code, that customer administrative change, only allows you to change a handful of things that don't materially affect the RDB itself. There's no dollar change, there's no scope change, there's no funding source change. It's just maybe some stuff. Usually that customer order number is the one field I see so often that the customer just gets aggravated with, because if we don't put it into eRETA, or if we don't put it into RETA for you, our system just defaults to put the full RWA number in that field. And then when you guys get your bills, you're like, well, wait a minute, this isn't helpful to me at all. I put something in that block on the RWA because I wanted to see that specifically on the bills when they came out. Now you can, essentially fix all of the errors GSA has done over the years when we put the RWAs in for you, and now you can amend those prior RWAs with that e-input code to fix or update the customer order number, among a few other fields as well. The billing change, H-input code, this is largely if you need to change, if we're billing the wrong place, if we're billing the wrong agency location code or billing the wrong BOAC or both, that's what you would do with, or the primary reason why you'd use a H-input code billing change. The N-input code to cancel or mark something early, to complete it early, is in the case where you have to cancel the services for whatever needs, maybe priority shifted or something else arose, and now you can no longer proceed with this RWA. That would be what the N-input code was for, and as you remember, that screen was a little bit different than the other 3 in that you just have to type in a justification for why you were asking to, or why you're asking GSA to mark the RWA canceled or mark it completed. And lastly, the catch-all, the X input code, is when you need to change either a whole bunch of stuff or at least the dollar amount or the funding source or something like that. And remember the key fields, which were the description / scope field, the dollar amount field, and the funding source, i.e. the appropriation type you're using to fund the RDB. If any of those 3 fields are changed, RETA then knows to automatically require you to re-sign or sign this amendment, as that would materially change the RWA, and therefore new signatures would be required. Now I will say, if you want more details or want a little additional hand-holding the first time you do an amendment, you can reference this slide, but we also have, going back to our eRETA website, whoops, move my mouse, there we go. So on the eRETA website, I'm on the eRETA training materials sub-tab, if you recall from the very beginning, and then scrolling down just here to user guides, our newest user guide, submitting RDB amendments to GSA and eRETA. This one we just posted live a little over about 6 weeks ago now, and this goes into much more detail with screenshots on each of the 4 amendment types and what you can or cannot edit on each one of those amendments. So this is a super helpful resource that is now available for you to download if you find that to be helpful for you.
Great. Sort of have a follow-up to that. How is a customer to know when they need to go into eRETA and enter an amendment for anything other than like a customer-driven administrative change?
That's a good question, and there's several answers I'll speak to at least the ones that are most obvious to me, or not most obvious, but most common, the ones I see most commonly. Typically when you're billing folks, which might not be you guys, but it might be someone in a different area of your agency, but if they are charging back, in other words, they're refusing to pay a bill we sent to them or charging back part of it because something's wrong, that's usually because we've billed the wrong part of the agency. We billed the wrong, usually the agency location code is wrong, so we're trying to take the money out of the wrong pot, whether we entered it wrong or it was given to us wrong on the paper version originally, but that's one of the more common reasons that would then instigate an H input code, so we could fix the BOAC and the agency location code. Now, oftentimes, while you as the customer can certainly do that, it ends up usually being GSA that fixes your ALC or BOAC, because our finance office, not my shop, but our finance shop based in Fort Worth, Texas, will get the notifications about a chargeback. They usually communicate with you as the customer, or more likely your finance folks in your agency, realize the wrong billing information, and then we will go into eRETA and fix it for you. But that is one of the more common reasons to do an amendment. The only other time, or the other common time when you might think you need to do an amendment, is when we realize, the original estimate was maybe too low, so we need to amend the RWA to add additional funds. So that would be something you would initiate with an X input code. Maybe we've already created the revised estimate for you, so now you're just going into eRETA and eRETA to amend your RWA up to match that new estimated amount. So that would be another common reason why you might, or know when to go in and do an amendment.
Excellent. Let's jump topics, and I'll give you a heads up. Probably going to need to go back into the test environment for this one. We could take advantage of some live demonstration. And again, if you want to get a better view of this, hit that four-headed arrow at the top right. We're going to talk about the search function. Just kind of a general question. Can you show us how the search function works in eRETA and the different things that you can search for or by?
Sure. All right. Navigate to the search here. It's thinking. It's trying to get there. So, well, I guess I'll talk a little bit while I wait for this to load. So there's really four, but three main searches in eRETA already, which is obviously the search button here. The financial review search is another search, and then lastly, the documentation search is the third search. And all three of those searches work pretty much the same. They have the same search fields that you can look up or query for RWAs by. The only difference, of course, being the data that spits out. The basic search just gives you basic information about the RWA. The financial review search, of course, has more detailed financial information about the RWAs when you export all that to Excel. Oh, there we go. And then lastly, the documentation search, when you download that to Excel, it'll just reference the various documents that are tied to the RWA in question. So the searches all work the same. It's just what data you're looking to get out of it is the only difference between those three searches. So the search fields here, as you can now see on the screen, there's about 20 different things to search by. You don't have to search by all of them, of course. You can, if you know your RWA number, that's the one, that's always my go-to, the RWA number. And the top middle there is, if you type in your 7-digit number, don't type in the letter, but type in the 7-digit number there and run the search, and you'll get your one result back, and you're good to go. If you want to search more globally, you could search by RWA type here, for example. And anytime even though it says select all, you really don't need to. Anytime a field is not selected at all, we're going to look for any RWA that has any value. So by selecting no RWA types, that search is still going to pull back and look for every single RWA type out there. The statuses is another common one. Maybe you're looking for work request that's in one of these stages, or maybe you're looking for already accepted pending RWA, and you can see there's a whole bunch of statuses, and you might be like, what the heck are these statuses? I don't know. The easy answer is you click on the hyperlink. Any hyperlink on a search screen or even on a data entry screen opens up the eRETA glossary for that term. So if I clicked on the work request / RWA status, and you can see there's a very detailed description of all those statuses here in the glossary. So if you're ever uncertain about anything in eRETA or eRETA, and you see that the field name looks like a hyperlink, just click on it and you'll get, or you'll launch the eRETA glossary for that particular thing. So by and large, you can search for one or search for many different options. depending on what you're trying to pull up, overtime utilities, yes or no. Maybe you just want your RWAs in owned facilities but not leased facilities. Whatever you want to do, the search screen pretty much allows you to do. Just be aware that the more search fields that I enter, so if I populated something in all of these search fields here, right, I might not get any results back because by default, eRETA uses the AND operator. So the more and more fields is going to look to make sure that RWAs that are returned match that criteria and that criteria and this criteria. So the more criteria you enter is going to reduce the pool of return results because fewer and fewer RWAs might meet all of those conditions. And that's pretty much a quick overview of the basic search and how to use it. Obviously, if you run the search, you get the results here at the bottom of the screen. But you can also jump directly to export to Excel. I'm not going to do that here just because it takes a little while in our test environment. But if you export to Excel, this same list of, in this case, 499 records will export to Excel, but there'll be a lot more information in Excel because we have, essentially unlimited columns. So I can only show you these 8 or 9 columns on the screen because we only have so much space. But in Excel, the same search might have about 25 columns of data in Excel. So the best way there is just to say, dump these into Excel every once in a while and get familiar with what additional data we also provide to you in the Excel version of any one of these searches. So there you go. Super long answer.
That export to Excel function is something I highly recommend people take advantage of. You can do a lot with it. You can do a lot of sorting and filtering. I imagine your own customer agencies will have a lot of use for that beyond maybe what we've even thought about. So, Steve, I do want to thank you. I think we're running out of some questions here. Just want to make sure that nothing else has come in. So if you have more questions about the search, I should point out that we did do a quick tip on it, and you will also find some additional questions about searching in the frequently asked questions document that is up on the www.gsa.gov/eRETA website. And so we're going to start wrapping up, but Steve, if you wouldn't mind just putting that questions and resources slide back up. So, oh, there we go. Look at that. Monthly quick tips right in front of you there. We have yet to send out our June quick tip, I believe. So there's still time to send your email in, sign up for eRETA, and then get our June quick tips. We will continue doing that for the foreseeable future. I want to take a moment just to thank Steve for pulling this presentation together. Like I said, this is the first one of these that we have done. And I want to thank all of our customers for joining us today. I certainly hope you found it more detailed and certainly useful for your purposes. We have an email address, clientenrichmentseries@gsa.gov. I'd love to hear your feedback if you have any other ideas. We love to put Steve to work making new slides and new presentations. So if there are topics that you want to hear more about, pop them into the chat. You can certainly send us an email as well. So thank you to everybody for joining us today. I did see at least one person ask about our beginner, quote-unquote, basic background training session on eRETA. The next session for that will be on Thursday, June 27th. You can sign up for that at www.gsa.gov/eRETA, E-R-E-T-A, and we will continue to offer the basic eRETA background session the second Tuesday of every month, July, August into September, and then we will offer a more advanced program, the How Do I series. And you can see all of that up on the screen. And we will be adding more topics to this advanced session and some more specific topics as well. So certainly keep your eyes out. We will update you on either the quick tips email or from the client enrichment series. So one final thing, we have been recording this session, and like I said, we will be following up with a formatted and final frequently asked questions document so that you can have that and reference that for posterity. We will share all of those links with you when they are available. And finally today, the goal of the Client Enrichment Series is to engage our audience in workplace topics that can contribute to your mission and your mission success and your effective management of your real estate and workplace programs. Again, if you have any questions, you're welcome to visit us online, www.gsa.gov/CES, Client Enrichment Series at gsa.gov. Thank you on behalf of the entire Client Enrichment Series team, and we hope to see you at our next session. Thank you.